You're listening to the Cat Breeder Sensei Says podcast, the show that supports the reputable breeding of pedigree cats. This is your show host, April Catito, and in this episode, we're going to be talking about retiring your queens. When is it time? And how to go about making sure they go to the right homes. But first, here is a short message.
Do you want to learn how to become a successful breeder of pedigree cats? Now you can. For the first time ever, enroll in an online training course that takes you step by step through everything you need to know to get on the right track. Visit catbreedersensei.com to sign up today and use code podcast21 to get $25 off.
All right, we're back. And before we dive into the content of this show, I want to tell you about a newsletter that we have available for you. It's very cool. It's called The Scoop. If you want to get an insider look at breeding pedigree cats, kind of an inside or behind the scenes type of subscription, updates, then you can go to the website catbreedersensei.com and subscribe to The Scoop. It's right on the homepage, and it's a bi-weekly newsletter that really talks about some of the taboo subjects and some of the things that breeders just don't like to talk about in the open. So this is a great way to see that you're not alone, maybe tackle some topics that you need solutions to, and maybe get some insight on some things that you weren't familiar with before. So go to catbreedersensei.com, and right on the homepage, you can subscribe to the newsletter. It's called The Scoop. So get The Scoop, and we will love to hear some feedback from you on that as well. Okay, so let's get into the topic of retiring our females. Now, there's numerous reasons that you may retire a female or your queen. Maybe they have kittens and it's time to retire. We'll talk about that. And sometimes they retire before they ever even have a litter of kittens, and there's definitely reasons for that. So we'll try to touch on both of those. I have some specific examples of females that have been retired for both reasons. So I'll give you some examples so you can, try to relate to when to retire your females. Now, some people choose to retire their girls and keep them as pets. Personally, I don't choose to do that. I like to keep my space available because space is definitely a valuable thing when it comes to breeding cats. And the more space that you have available, the better and the happier that your cats are. And ultimately, the happier you will be too. So I choose not to keep my retired females. I will rehome them and adopt them out to people that are interested in having older cats, because not everybody is interested in raising a kitten. So there's definitely a unique group of people who are interested in retirees of pedigree cats. So that's what I choose to do. I'm sure that there will be a female who comes into my life that I just can't let go of, that just, this just steals my heart, and well, of course, she can stay. But so far, the queens that I have had have retired, and they have gone on to live out their life as a pet with someone else. So when is the right time to retire one of your queens? Well, this question can be answered, in many different ways, whether it's, an issue with that cat or whether it's just time for her to retire. And that could be due to age or the number of kittens or your limitations. It's really entirely up to you if you're letting the queen produce kittens until, you say, okay, that's it. It's time for her to retire and go live as a pet. These kind of guidelines are different for everybody. So I see some people who will retire their girls at 3 years old. I see some that will retire them at 5 years old, and I've seen some that retire them at 7 years old. I even have one of my queens, her mother was 7 years old when she gave birth to her. And, I adopted the kitten as part of my breeding program, and she has absolutely been the best queen that I've had so far. I still have her. Her mom was 7. So my girl came from her last litter, and then her mom retired and went on to live as a pet. She was 7 years old. So, the decision to retire a queen is, it's a personal decision that you have to make. Some people have guidelines, like a certain number of kittens or a certain age. It all depends on what is best for you and your girl. Only you two know that. For me, I initially thought, well, I'll retire the girls when they're 3 years old or they've had 5 litters of kittens. And now I'm approaching that threshold where my best girl, who is healthy, she has a great temperament, and her type is outstanding, is probably in her prime. She's 3.5 years old, and I am not ready to retire her. I don't feel now like that's in the best interest of the breed. And, she's doing fantastic. She's a great mom. She has no issues. She has healthy litters. She's never lost a kitten. I have no complaints from any kittens that she has on the ground. And she's actually had 4 litters of kittens, and she will be 4 years old in November, December, in 5 months. So I'm not sure when I'm going to retire her yet, but my initial plan is no longer valid. I'm not going to retire her at 3 years old. I think that would be giving up just a really good asset to the breed and to my cattery and to the pet owners, to let that queen go and replace her with somebody else who may not be as high quality. So I can see now, the other side of keeping a queen for that long and, continuing to use her in the breeding program. If she's, that valuable of an asset, then I can totally see it. And the best way to do things is your way. So there's really no guidelines here as to what age a girl should retire and how many kittens she should produce before she retires. That's up to you. That's a decision that only you get to make for you and your queen. So, don't let other people and their way of handling, their queens put an influence on you. You'll know, like you can decide as time goes on, and you can see how your queen is handling the process of being a mother and raising her kittens and, being a part of your cattery. So totally up to you, and I'm sure you will ultimately make the right decision for her. Now, if it comes to complicated pregnancies, and there's, a big thing here that if your queen has to have 2 C-sections, then that probably should be the end of her breeding career. That's, means she's not built or designed well to deliver a litter of kittens. Maybe she has narrow hips, or she has, dystocia issues, but something is causing her to need to go to a vet and have a C-section, and that's just not natural. So, if maybe you can set a guideline for yourself, 2 C-sections, and, the queen needs to retire as a pet. I've definitely had this issue happen as well, where the mom, the queen, is not a good mom. So, it's just like humans. Sometimes you can have good parents, and, sometimes people aren't the best parents for their human kids. Same thing goes for kittens. I actually had a queen like this that I let her have 2 litters. The first litter, she demonstrated that she was a bad mom. She growled as she was delivering her kittens, and was kind of nibbling on them in a semi kind of violent way, and She didn't keep them clean when, as they were 1 week old, 2 week old. They were dirty. They had dirty faces, and her nest was dirty. And so I kind of chalked it up as first-time mom syndrome, right? Like, okay, we'll give her another chance, and maybe she'll be better. And then she delivered her second litter, and it was just a repeat of the first time. And as she was, delivering one of the kittens, she was super mad. I mean, they're usually not like that. Kittens are very good deliverers and birthers of their babies. She was screaming, and she was, spinning around in circles. And as the kitten was coming out, she was, biting it, like in a violent way. And I was like, oh my God, stop, and I was kind of reaching in there trying to intervene, which is never a good idea. And, she scratched me, swatted at me, and tried to bite me, and she was mad. So I'm like, wow, this is not good behavior from this mom. So I left her alone. Luckily, she didn't harm that kitten, but she didn't do a good job raising this litter either. So it was her second litter. She didn't want to stay in the nest with them and feed them. She would go in there for just a small amount of time, and then she would leave and wander around. And she didn't keep them clean either. So, I was in there doing booty duty and wiping their face, and they get milk, dried around their lips and on their muzzles and stuff, and it just turns black, and it looks really bad. So she just didn't take care of her kittens. When they were about 4 weeks old, she was in there growling at them. Like, she would sniff them and growl at them. And so, needless to say, I spayed her, and she retired, and she went on to live as a pet. And she's much happier now. So she just wasn't cut out to be a mom. So, if you see something like that, you don't want to keep putting her through that stress, and you can obviously tell that she's not enjoying what she's doing, so she's not the best candidate. Now, I had another girl who totally freaked out during childbirth. She was stressed, and she didn't have her babies in her birthing box. She just dumped them all over the floor, still in the bags. Didn't take them out of the bags. So this was at probably 4 o'clock in the morning. I happened to get up. I heard kittens meowing. Actually, my husband did. And he's like, is that kittens? And I went into the nursery, and she was in the litter box, pushing out a baby. And there were kittens all over the floor. They were still in their sacks with the placentas, and she just dropped and left. She had no interest in doing anything at all but kind of fleeing the scene. So I totally went into panic mode, and I shouldn't have. I, yelled for my husband to come in there and help me. He's way more calm than me. I'll know how to handle that better next time. But we had to, use the towels, put our gloves on, get them out of the bags, get them stimulated to start breathing. And luckily, there were 7 of them, and everybody survived. There was one that was not even fully formed, so that one wasn't, I couldn't save that one. But it was just laying, on the floor. Every kitten was just laying on the floor in random spots. So she retired, and she lives as a pet now. Okay, so let's, talk about stress. So anytime you put cats living together, you run the risk of them being stressed out. And that can mean so many different things. It can cause health issues. It can cause them to fight with the other cats. It can cause loss of pregnancy. They can become aggressive, and they can, urinate and defecate outside their litter box. There's so many things that indicate a stress level. And I had one that was stressed out. And, so she retired, and she, once she was spayed and those hormones quit kicking her ass, she was perfectly fine. She actually peed on the floor every day. So not hormone related, because she did it even when she wasn't in heat, but every single day. Every time she had to pee, she peed on the floor. And that that basically drove me completely nuts. I tried everything for her. Took her to the vet. She was fine. Nothing wrong with her. Tried different litters, different litter boxes, different locations, everything. Put puppy pads down, just tried everything, and she just was stressed out. I mean, it was pretty obvious. So once, we spayed her, after a couple of months and her hormones actually relaxed, she quit doing that, and she is rehomed and with someone new, and he loves her, and she is much happier now. So, that's something that you have to determine what your tolerance level is for things like that, and, how much can you take of a cat that, pees on the floor every single day. I actually have an external cattery, so it's not, wasn't that bad for me, but when you go to the cattery to visit or to clean, and there's always pee on the floor or on the cat trees, that's a little frustrating for me, so I chose to retire her. All right, now we'll talk about the big one, which is health issues. Probably should be a no-brainer. However, it's not for everybody, but it certainly is for me. So when you get a kitten, and you put it in your breeding program, right, you raise it up until it's at least over a year old. And up until that age, you usually don't see health issues. Kittens are relatively healthy. When they start getting older, that may be when you start to see some things that aren't quite right. Maybe you see them as kittens, but as the cat gets older, you may start to notice things that you say, what's going on with this cat? And that's usually when the health issues start to surface. So anything that comes up in your cats that are genetic, that you don't want passed down to the kittens, and I kind of determine that by, is it going to affect their quality of life? Is going to, hinder their ability to live a happy and stress-free life, or is it going to cause big problems? We can't prevent everything genetic that might happen, but we can definitely control health problems, major health problems, and things that are just big no-nos, especially for breed-specific issues. So if something comes up, then that's, a decision that it really takes not a lot of thought. It's like, okay, you're retiring, you have a health issue, and, I can't continue this. This is not good for the breed, it's not good for the cattery, and it's not good for the pet owners. We're going to discontinue this line. That's really your main job, is to pre-screen, monitor, follow up with your pet owners, and make sure that your cats are healthy. And if a health issue comes up, don't ignore it. Address that. And you have to narrow it down to the root of the problem, like which cat did this come from? If it's, an issue that's coming up in kittens, especially an issue that comes up in more than one kitten from the same cat, so offspring. You have to keep track of your kittens and follow up with the owners. Also, issues that come up without it showing up in kittens. Make decisions based on what you're dealing with at the veterinarian, and, make good decisions. This is really where integrity and ethics comes in, is making the decision to retire a cat from your breeding program if it has health issues that are going to be passed down to their kittens. So please do the right thing and study, research, know the red flags, and make the right decisions about retiring your cats, even if it is before they ever produce any kittens. Because, once that gets out there, the bloodlines and your pets, it's out there forever for you and someone else and the cat to have to deal with for life, if that's be the case. And we're not just talking about things that can be tested for through DNA or, screening. Everybody's so adamant about DNA testing and echocardiograms and x-rays and all this stuff. But the things that I've had to spay or neuter an animal for, a cat, isn't any of these things. It's other issues that have come up that I didn't want passed down to kittens. So, yes, DNA testing, echocardiograms, x-rays for hips, whatever your breed requires for health screening, that's all great. You should be doing that as a pre-screener. But there's certainly a lot of other things that come up, So when it does, that's when you have to make those difficult decisions. So those are just some examples of, when to retire your kitties from your breeding program. Lots of different scenarios come up as to, when it's time to decide when a queen needs to be retired. I mean, the same thing goes for your males. We just talk about queens because they're actually the one producing the kittens and going through the deliveries and raising, babies, and it's harder on their body, obviously, than that of a male. So this episode was dedicated to retiring your females. As always, it's all about doing what's best for your cat to keep them happy and healthy, and so that you're producing healthy kittens in your cattery. So the more educated you become, the better decision-making skills you will have. So I do want to thank you for listening to this episode of Cat Breeder Sensei Says. Hopefully it offered some insight to you on retiring your cats. When it comes to choosing where the kittens go, you should have a list of people who are interested in retirees and that are looking for those older cats that, they want to welcome the older retirees into their home. There are plenty of people who would love to have a pedigree retiree. So don't worry about finding a good home for your retirees. There's plenty of people out there who will absolutely give them all the love that they deserve. If you loved this episode of Cat Breeder Sensei Says, do us a favor and leave us a very good review on the platform that you listen to this podcast on, or you can leave a comment on our website. We also host the podcast episodes on our website, catbreedersensei.com. Share it with your friends on social media, and don't forget to subscribe to The Scoop, our bi-weekly newsletter, just to get an inside look of the life of a pedigree cat breeder. See you guys later. Bye.